It's so cool. So this is an old cattle fence. You can tell it's an old cattle fence by the way it is. But you're watching Local Knowledge, and we're out here in Hungryland, and we're going to discuss why Hungryland is named Hungryland. So one of the things I wanted to do was to read off of my phone the story of Hungryland, because I want to be as accurate as possible. And it's a story that was passed from the Seminoles from a woman named Renfro, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. So I'm gonna hand the camera to my wonderful assistant today, Sammy. So this is the legend of the woman of Hungryland. And Hungryland goes back to the Seminole War era, specifically the Second Seminole War, which took place in the 1830s, and it ended in the 1840s. The Seminoles viewed it as one long war. Beginning in 1992, Seminoles from the Seminole Nation in Oklahoma began coming to Jupiter to commemorate the 2 battles fought here in Palm Beach County. In 1994, Palm Beach County permitted us, meaning the Loxahatchee battlefield preservationists, to hold our first maroon commemoration on the battlefield located in Riverbend Park, which is in Jupiter Farms. During the 1994 visit, Miss Helen Renfro, along with Rosetta Noble Finney, told us the story of the legend of the Hungryland woman. The following story appeared in the Palm Beach Post in 2002, as told by former Loxahatchee Battlefield Preservationist President Steve Carr.
One of the things I wanted to point out in telling this story of the legend of the woman of Hungryland is I think the information is a little off, or I can't find the article. But this is an article written in 1998, April of 1998, and it tells the story of these Oklahoma Seminoles coming to visit. And I wanted to point out one of those Seminole descendants, Rosetta Finney Noble, and how she was visiting Palm Beach County from Oklahoma. And I think she, at this time, is when she shared that story. A few remained free and found refuge, of all places, as scouts and buffalo soldiers in the American Army. They lived to pass on their stories to the descendants, who now number around 3,000. This weekend, the descendants have come to pass down those stories to the rest of us. So I think when this was passed down was at this point in time, April of 1998.
We're in a heat advisory. It's 94 degrees out.
Hot.
It's hot. But we're in Hungryland, so honestly, it's all good.
Like, so beautiful.
So this is a short story, but it's a long story, and I think that there's a lot more that can be said about it. But what I have here, I'll read. Following the battle, U.S. troops surrounded a faction of Seminoles who were holed up on an island in what is now called the Hungryland Slough along the Beeline Highway west of Jupiter. The Seminoles refused to surrender. "This is our homeland, and we chose this place to die," the Seminole leader told the U.S. emissary. "When you will die here," the emissary replied, "we will stay here as long as we have to, and you will call this the Hungryland." As the troops kept watch, the number of campfires on the island dwindled each night for several days, until there was no more. When the soldiers canoed to the island, they found a single Seminole, an ancient Seminole woman who kept the fires alive until she starved to death so the people could escape. And this is a quote from Steve Carr. "She kept the fires going. She gave her life to save her people." So that's the short story of the woman of Hungryland. In that short story, the author discussed this island west of Jupiter. And what we know today is that the Battle of the Loxahatchee was fought in what is now Riverbend Park. Riverbend Park is 680 acres, and then the battlefield within the park is 64 acres. So the Loxahatchee Battlefield Preservationists are a nonprofit that run out of that 64-acre battlefield within Riverbend Park. what I enjoy about that story is after studying Western Martin and Palm Beach County.
Sorry.
No, the bugs are bad. All right, so in that short story online, they talk about this island. So after the battle took place, the Seminoles who refused to surrender were forced west to this island. And ever since this story has been shared and known, it's been debatable what this island is. And so we have to, what I like to say, put on our history goggles and go back in time before development existed and look at Florida, how it looked back in the 1830s. Prior to roads being built, this was a wire trail, believe it or not, during that time period. And it did connect to Indiantown. I think it actually connected to Fort Van Swearingen, which is in that area, or Fort Van Swearingen, however you want to pronounce it. It had a trail called the Van Swearingen Trail. That's kind of irrelevant to the story. So anyway, so there's been a debate for decades over what this island is, and it's still a debate. We still don't know where this island existed, but it's a story that's been passed down within the Seminoles. So we know it existed through oral tradition, oral history that's been passed down. The Seminoles don't have like a written history, so most of their stuff has been passed down through oral tradition. So if we look at Western Palm Beach County on a map, there's going to be holes and islands everywhere. There's going to be swampland and trees, and the area was heavily logged, and so what we have today are three wildlife areas. We have Hungryland, WEA, we have Corbett, WMA, and we have Dupree, both within, or all these are within Palm Beach and Martin County. One of the chiefs, Seminole Chief Tallahassee, when he died, before he passed away, one of his last dying wishes was to be buried out in his favorite hunting ground called the Hungryland. So, and he was. We don't know where he was buried, but understanding local history kind of gives us an idea of where this might have taken place. So, in the archaeological record of Western Palm Beach County, we have Big Mound City, and we have Big Gopher and Little Gopher. Both of these are in Corbett, which is where we are not. Historically, Corbett was probably referred to as Hungryland because it rested within that entire area, that landmass between the lake and the Atlantic. So I think it's kind of safe to say that the island might have been one of those locations. However, that was far away from the Loxahatchee River battle location. So for the soldiers to have been able to see the fire smoke, I mean, that's pushing it kind of far. It might be around 20 miles. So yeah, we have to look kind of closer. Maybe it was an island closer. I talked to a lot of old timers whose parents told them stories about, where these things took place, and everybody seems to have a different idea. But maybe in the future, our county archaeologists can uncover some of these lesser known histories that are waiting to be studied. With the help of Seminoles too, we can help figure out more of the deep history of Palm Beach County, Western Palm Beach County, Southern Martin County, Western Martin County.
Knowing she was going to pass away, she still was able to save the majority of her people.
And they called her an ancient Seminole woman. So, I mean,
definitely
she must have been a super important, and the sacrifice, oh my goodness.
All right, so let's just take a break for a second, because one of the things I really want to do is to go into the National Archive digital records collections and look for anything potentially written about the woman of Hungryland or the situation. So let's say, for example, the battles took place in January of 1838. Well, when did this supposed story of the legend of the woman of Hungryland take place? Was it directly after the battle? Was it a couple weeks after the battle? Was it a couple months after the battle? Was it the day of the battle? So in my mind, one of the ways we can potentially corroborate the Seminole perspective of the story is to see if the military even wrote about it. So I pulled up, I read through a ton of Jesup letters, and there was one of interest that I wanted to read through. So we'll use my fancy pink mouse here, and we'll look first at this letter. What I want to do is ignore like all this stuff. So we're just going to ignore this, and I want to start the letter down here. Starting down here, let's read it. Camp Jupiter, March 18th, 1838. Colonel, I have received your letter on the 15th instant, and I regret that the Indians escaped. I desire you to send a party in. All right, so we'll go to the next page. I actually transcribed this so that I can read it if I don't understand. You know what? Actually, let's just do that. So we left off, yeah, I desire you to send a party in. Oh, let's blow it up a little bit. In. Oh, oh, nope. Okay. In pursuit of them. The pursuit may induce them to fly to us. About 60 of the party pass the neighborhood of the mounds. So this is something that was really interesting to me. This is one of the only times in reading any of the Jesup letters that I came across them discussing mounds. And I know which mounds they're talking about because there aren't really that many around, but B, there's one specific mound grouping that exists along their route, and it's probably Big Mound in Corbett. You know, if you're walking that, you're walking along the boundary of the Everglades back then. So I think that this is literally why I pointed out this section of the Jesup letters, because let's read the sentence again. Okay. I desire you to send a party in pursuit of them. The pursuit may induce them to fly to us. About 60 of the party passed the neighborhood of the mounds, came in after my letter to you on the 10th instant, and were enrolled here. They report 30 or 40 of the party out. Interesting. I desire you to secure the country and capture all parties that can be overtaken. I have directed the force to New River to commence active and vigorous operations against the Indians, etc., etc. So what we do know is that what Jesup is talking about here is trying to flush the enemy, or the Seminole Indians, to his camp so that he could peacefully emigrate them out of the area. And one thing I also want to point out in this document that I enjoy is Fort McRae is mentioned down here. Not that. It's infantry word. Okay. Okay. So Fort McRae is where present-day Port Mayaca is, and here the spelling is a little different than we see in other areas. But anyway, this is written from Lieutenant Colonel William Davenport in Fort McRae, Florida, which is present-day Port Mayaca. You have effected a most important operation by demonstrating that a communication through the sawgrass swamps to the lake is practicable. Interesting. So one of the things I also want to point out is in the Seminole story, they discuss the legendary ancient Seminole woman lighting fires and tending to these fires to make it appear as if the Seminoles were still out there in large numbers. But when they got there, there was only one woman, allowing the rest of the group to escape. I just wanted to see if there was primary source material to tell this story. We do have records in this Jesup what do they call it? It's letters received. He does discuss a lot about Seminoles escaping and having to go find them, and I've read through these and I'm piecing them together, so maybe in our next episode we can go through these documents that discuss what happened directly after the Battle of the Loxahatchee in January of 1838. I love transcribing primary source material. Actually, this is stuff that's helping me in my master's thesis, which I'm going to be defending soon. Thanks for watching, and hopefully next week we have something just as good, if not more fascinating than General Jesup's letters written out of the swamps of the Loxahatchee.
Thank you for watching this episode of Local Knowledge on the story of the woman of Hungryland. Please feel free to leave any comments or questions and suggestions of what you might want to hear next. I am super interested and passionate about Palm Beach County and Martin County history, more so on the central and western portions of it. The lesser known histories. I'm currently on the old Jupiter Indiantown grade, which is a road I've been covering the last 3 episodes.